Okay, well, I've been asked by a few people now to do my testimony and put it onto YouTube. I always enjoy sort of talking about scripture when I'm making videos and that kind of thing. I'm not very good at relating personal experience, so I hope this comes across right. I've prayed before making this video that everything comes across in a truthful manner. So I'm just going to say everything exactly how it happens, even if it perhaps people might make a judgment call upon me or something like that, I don't know, but I'm just going to say everything as honestly as I possibly can, and try to give you a bit of a background, but also I might have to split this into two parts because my story is quite long, but just to give you a bit of background, I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness household. My mum and dad brought me up very, very well. They always taught me the good morals that are in the scriptures. They always taught me that that what I was in was the truth, and that's what they were teaching me. And I had a very good upbringing. They encouraged me to do as well as I possibly could at school. They didn't necessarily encourage me to stay on for further education, because obviously they were trying to encourage me to dedicate my life to God, and dedicate my life to the organisation, to obviously do more in the ministry. I have a family. Both my mum and dad are witnesses. My older sister is a witness. I then had a sister when I was about 10 years old, a younger sister, that again always followed the organisation. I have aunts and uncles. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And I have some grandparents. Unfortunately, my nana died a few years ago, but my granddad is still a strong witness. So all of my immediate family, anyway, are all Jehovah's Witnesses. I grew up in a very small congregation. There'd be about 30 or 40 people. Slowly but surely, that started increasing. But when I got to about the age of 14, mainly due to peer pressure that I was getting probably from a lot of people at school at the time, and because a lot of my friends had left the organisation, I'd come to the conclusion that I wanted to leave the organisation as well. At that time I wasn't a publisher or anything else like that. I simply said to my dad, look, I don't want to come to meetings anymore, and he told me that I had to wait till I was 16, because at that time, when I was 16 years old, as far as he was concerned, by then I was a grown-up and I could make my own decisions, but until then I essentially had to do what it is that he told me to do. So a couple of years went by. The elders that I was with at the time in a little town called Bourne, in Lincolnshire, they were really, really encouraging to me, and they tried to show me that the organisation was the truth, and they told me that I really should be dedicating my life to Jehovah through baptism, and when I was 16 years old, that's exactly what happened. So at 16 years old, I was baptised. A couple of years down the line, I met a sister in my congregation that recently moved in. Instantly became friends. But anyone who's a Jehovah's Witness knows that as soon as you start becoming friends with somebody of the opposite sex, automatically it's assumed that you're together, and before you know it, people are pressuring you into getting married and all kinds of things. Unfortunately, as much as people will deny this, this is exactly what happened to me. I hadn't had much experience in life. I'd be just turning 18 years old at the time. I'd never had a relationship in my life before. I didn't know what it meant to be in love with someone, but truth of the matter is that I found someone that I thought was half decent, and got married to them at a very young age. We got married when I was just after I turned 20 years old, so I was very, very young at the time. But in spite of being very young, I always went to all the meetings. My field ministry was always good. I tried to pioneer once over the course of the year, for one particular month, because I had a full-time job, because I felt it was I needed to take the responsibility of earning the bread in my family. I provided for my wife very well. We had a nice house together. We had a couple of cars. Life was relatively comfortable on a monetary terms, and everything was going quite well. I have to be honest with you, I was never happy in my marriage, but I was like, well, okay, that's fine. We're just passing through this system of things. It doesn't matter if I'm not completely happy, because in the new system we'll all be perfect anyway, and then everything's going to be okay. Now, it got to this. Just trying to think when about it was. It was about 2 years after we were married, so I'd be about 22 years old. My job got quite stressful at times, as most jobs do, and my wife was being communicated with me a lot less. I felt that there was I was doing a lot in our marriage and not getting a great deal back. I would go out to work every day. She never worked in her life at all, and didn't do a great deal around the home, which was stressing me out, I have to say. I don't want to be too hard on her though, because I want to be honest about this testimony. I don't want it to be perceived as though I'm having a dig at anybody, so I'm not going to do that. But I wasn't happy, put it that way. I wasn't happy in my marriage, and I didn't really know what to do really. So I kind of just, let's say, ignored everything and thought everything would be okay in the new system. I just got to break through it and everything else. An elder at the time, we were still having the book study at the time, and he told me after the group one night, he said, "Jason, you need to change your job. So your job is just getting too stressful for you. You need to change it." And so I did. I was an IT software consultant at the time, earning a very good wage, and he told me to knock it all on the head. So I did. I knocked it all on the head, and I did what every other good English pioneer does, and I started cleaning windows. And the intention was to pioneer alongside that. Now, over the course of the 6 months leading up to this, I saved up quite a lot of money in preparation for what was going to happen in terms of me leaving my job. So I got enough money to be able to set up the business, and enough money to be able to see that we were going to be okay for at least the next 6 months while the business took itself off the ground. About 2 weeks after this had happened, I come home from work one night, and there was a note that was on the dining room table, and basically it was my wife telling me that she'd left me. It didn't give me a reason why. I tried to call her, I sent her messages, I left messages on her answering machine, just got nothing back. 3-4 weeks went down the line, still couldn't get hold of her, still wouldn't tell me where she is. I then went to the bank, and we had a joint account at the time, and I'd been cleaned out. I had savings of about £4,000, and it had all gone. Every single penny that I got had gone. At the time I was still trying to start this business, and it just wasn't working because I wasn't in the right place mentally, and now from a financial point of view as well, I just couldn't afford to keep the business going, and I tried very, very hard. Now, a friend of mine at the time offered a bit of a hand, and he tried to help me sort of get it better, but again, I just wasn't in a state mentally where I could cope with it. Now, while this was all going on, I started attending a different congregation because I felt that it wouldn't be appropriate for me and my wife to be going to the same meetings, because she clearly wanted some space and I wanted to give that to her. But little did I know at the time that my name in my congregation was getting branded as being a bad husband, as being a bad associate, and as being somebody that really was bad news and that nobody should be associating with me. And that's what happened. A lot of my friends started to abandon me. They stopped associating with me and so on. And I still, To this day, I still don't know what actually happened to my wife at the time. I don't know where it was that she went. And I was just in a place where I was just distraught. People were knocking at my door, wanting money, you know, and slowly but surely started turning off my power. The water board were getting onto me because bills weren't getting paid and everything else, and I just didn't have any money. I just did not have, you know, the means to be able to do it. I sold both my cars just to keep the wool from the doors, yeah, it got really bad. It got really tough, and I was still a witness at the time. But I didn't really feel like anyone was wanted to help me. I just felt that whenever elders came to me to talk to me, all they wanted to do was to just bash me over the head and tell me what a bad husband I was and everything else. So I found it really difficult to talk to them, and I found then praying to be very, very difficult. And so basically then, you see, this is where I'm really ashamed to admit what happened, because about a month later I really hit rock bottom. Just at that point didn't really care what it is that was going to happen to me. And a young lady knocked at my door from another congregation. I had never met her before in my life. I invited her in. We had a cup of tea together and that kind of thing. And for the once, probably in about 3-4 months, maybe even I'll probably even say 6 months, I actually smiled. There was half a smile on my face when she came around to see me. Something happened that day that shouldn't have happened, and I fully admit, put my hands up and say, yeah, it shouldn't have happened. And even though obviously I was still married at the time, there was no grounds for divorce, obviously, scripturally, because neither of us had committed adultery. But after this had happened, obviously there was a reason why we could actually now have a divorce. But at that time I still didn't care. I didn't care at the fact, to be honest with you, at that time as to what happened. It took me a few weeks to actually realise what it is that I'd done. And then I requested a meeting. Actually, I don't know if I requested a meeting or I was asked to go to a meeting. I don't know either way. But either way, I wanted to have a meeting with the elders to essentially confess everything that it is that I'd done. So the day comes of the judicial committee, and if anyone's ever attended a judicial committee, I tell you, it's just the most horriblest thing that you ever have to go through. I went to the Kingdom Hall. I sat in front of 3 elders that I'd known for a long period of time, and I sat down in front of them. They were all 3 of them lined up in a row, and I had to sit in front of them and they had all got a desk, and I just got a seat. And they said, "Have you got a mobile phone in your pocket?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Right, you need to take it out, put it on the rostrum. So have you got anything else on you at all?" And they made me empty my pockets and put them on the table. And then we had our judicial discussion. I'm going to run out of time now, so I'm going to move into the next part on the next video.